unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome. Here's what you're going to learn on The Last Show tonight. The newest dating trend for Gen Zs, it's called grim keeping. It sounds silly, but it's basically dating based on shared things that you hate. Love gossiping about friends, trash talking a musician? Well, that is the basis for some young people finding, well, love. What's your take on that? Is it too negative? Or is one of the great pleasures in life sharing private time with a significant other and talking smack? That's what we'll discuss in about 10 minutes' time. Then, swiping left and swiping right on dating apps. Your hottest feature might not be your smile or your look. It could be your politics. Towards the end of the hour, new research showing how political views shape attraction and dating success online. Okay, that's just some of what we'll cover. That's just some of what you'll learn. There'll be more. We'll cover more. But for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
It is that time of the year in London, England. We are joined by our foreign correspondent, Tony Five, to announce one of the most strange and odd awards that you need to hear about. Hearing about this will change your life. Literally. Probably. Tony is an expert in all things dead and undead, and I'll stop burying the lead. Tony, what award ceremony are we excited about?
David, as the Mexicans say, Cinco de Mayo, the Day of the Dead. And obviously now, this time of year, this sort of quite dark, quite gloomy, quite end of the year. We in the UK, we don't celebrate the Oscars. We don't celebrate the Tonys. We celebrate a Gravedigger of the Year, David.
The Gravedigger of the Year. And it's not just that. The 2025 Good Funeral Awards in the UK have been announced. Things like the Crematorium of the Year, the Most Natural Burial Ground of the Year, Low-Cost Funeral Provider of the Year. These are pretty exciting announcements that I think people in North America, where I am, really do need to hear about. But I want to zoom in to the guy who won Gravedigger of the Year, because you'd think that would be kind of grim. You'd think that'd kind of be like a bad award. But this guy, he's got a pretty uplifting view.
He's a lovely guy, a guy called Johnny Yaxley, and it's not the first time he's won the award, David. 2014 was his last year. God only knows what happened to him in those 11 years. He probably let it slip, didn't he? Maybe dropped a body or two. But, you know, he came back fighting in 2025 and he has won it. But he has such a lovely take on death. Obviously, it's a very natural thing, and he says people don't really talk about it as much. And he was saying that one of his most favourite sort of recent burials has been a man who had worked on Star Wars and in the film industry, and he had a funeral director. So I guess you call them funeral directors over there. You know, the guy that leads the ceremony, an MC type thing.
Yeah, sure. Maybe not the priest, but like the other guy who leads it.
Yeah. Leads in front of the coffin and the casket type thing, and he had like a top hat carrying a lightsaber. I mean, that sounds cool, right?
It does. And this guy said that winning this award is not depressing, that it's the biggest honor in the world. What an uplifting thing. It's not a job I would want to do. Jews, I don't know if you know this, when one of our family members die, we kind of bury our dead. It's part of the process. Like everybody grabs the shovel and puts in a little bit of dirt. So, wow. I mean, it's not like, the grave diggers do the real digging.
Yes,
Everyone
yes,
just sort of shovels on a little bit, and then the grave diggers do the hard work. But just having done a little bit of burying, I've probably buried like 6, 7 people. It ain't fun. It doesn't seem like that fun a job, I got to say.
No, that's really fascinating, though. So is that a Jewish tradition, or is that something that happens all the time, yeah?
I feel like there's going to be some better Jew out there listening being like, he's getting it wrong. He's a bad Jew. But yeah, I do think it's considered a good deed. And there's some weird tradition about it where no one can compel you to bury the dead. So everybody puts the shovel back in the dirt when they're done. You're not supposed to hand someone a shovel, because if you compel someone to do it, then it's no longer a good deed. You have to do it of your own volition. It doesn't really make sense, but when you're done, you put the shovel back in the dirt and someone else grabs
picks it up.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I know there are various traditions. I've been to various funerals where people maybe pick up the flowers from the cortege or from the hearse and they throw it in. onto the coffin before the gravedigger comes and obviously fills the hole. But yeah, fascinating. There are lots of rituals. That's the word I'm trying to get. Rituals around death and how people, some denominations maybe celebrate death. You know, if you look in the African communities, they dress in white and they're singing and they're bouncing, you know, the coffin on their shoulders and dancing and stuff like that. Whereas, you know, me as a Catholic, it's quite a somber occasion.
And you guys do the wake, which is a wild tradition to me.
Yes, a lot of people don't really understand the wake. You know, growing up, the wake is basically, and it's called like celebrating the dead. Basically, you finish burying them and you go to a pub or a bar and get absolutely hammered.
Yeah, I mean, that's very British of you. Let's get back to the Gravedigger of the Year. He was asked about what drew him into the career, and originally he was just like landscaping or maintaining the grounds for the city. But when the work opened up, he took it, and he said, "Pardon the pun, I just fell into this line of work by accident."
He must have seen someone fall in. I think that's one of the worst things that can possibly happen. Can you imagine falling into a grave? I know you see it on loads of comedies, but God, can you imagine it, dude?
I cannot. Well, congratulations to this guy and the other 2025 Good Funeral Awards. Another one of the awards was Pet Funeral Provider of the Year.
Okay, yeah.
And Green Company / Product of the Year. And that actually went to a biodegradable, like fungus coffin manufacturer called Loop Biotech. I had their CEO on the show a while ago talking about this fungus or whatever biodegradable coffin. So these are, you know, we've done our coverage of these awards in our way.
I mean, if they're looking for a sponsor for the next year's awards, David, I know they can't look further than us.
People on radio shows who talk about the Funeral Awards award, for the best ones who do that, we might win that.
I think we're in a shoe-in. If not, we're definitely up for second place, David.
Now, Tony, I want to talk about Tyra Banks. She's this famous, how would you even describe her? Like television host, model, yeah.
Personality, a judge on a show. She was very famous in, I think, the 2000s as what they would call a supermodel.
Yes,
yeah,
and then she had America's Top Model that she hosted. Correct. Or whatever. She has a new product idea. I don't know how we didn't think of this. It might be the most genius product idea in the world. What does everyone like, Tony?
Chicken.
No ice cream, but what's the biggest problem about running an ice cream company? Logistics. Gravy. No, not gravy. We're on to ice cream now, not chicken anymore.
Okay.
Logistics. You got to get the ice cream from your plant or your industrial kitchen or wherever you make it to the store, and it's got to stay frozen because if it thaws, it turns into a gloopy slop that nobody wants.
Just cream, basically.
Yeah. Enter Tyra Banks. She is now selling hot ice cream, which I assume is just gloopy slop. But because it's sold by Tyra Banks, labeled as hot ice cream, maybe you want to buy it. Right now, you have to go to Australia to buy it, which just increases the stupidity of this story. But Tony, isn't this the kind of genius business idea that I feel like you would pitch to me?
David, I think once, many years ago, we used to have a rip-off of the Shark Tank called
we had to call it the Sea Predator Aquarium, or the Cod Pod.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cod Pod or Sea Predator Aquarium. And I remember thinking, I don't like coffee, but you know what I would like, David? A cold drink. So I thought hot coffee made cold. And then you shot me down in flames by saying that iced coffee existed already.
Yeah, I used to love doing this with you. We used to have people call in and pitch their terrible business ideas. I feel like hot ice cream would be up on the list, and we would adjudicate on them much like the sea predators on Sea Predator Aquarium. We don't want to get sued, allegedly. All you have to do is say allegedly. Maybe we should do that again. Maybe we should have people call and pitch their terrible business ideas and see if we're willing to fund them with a nickel or something.
I think, David, if anybody's listening now and you have a business idea that you need us investors, we would throw maybe $52 each. So that's $106 for the pair. And we can go into you. We will take 35% each. So that's an equal share amongst all of us. And leave a message.
All right, let's do this. Let's have bad business ideas pitched. Give us a call. We'll see what the interest is. The number is 1-888-505-6644. It took me a second there. 1-888-505-6644. Pitch your ideas to the Sea Predators. Tony, it is such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for being here.
David, always a pleasure, my friend. You take care.
Up next, a strange and oddly negative dating trend amongst young people. It's called grim keeping, bonding with someone who shares things they hate with you. I love it. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Does misery love company? Well, if everything that annoys you attracts you to someone who is annoyed by the same stuff, grim keeping might be the dating fad for you. Thank you, Gen Z. And thank you, Caitlin Green, co-host of the Jan Arden podcast and media personality, for coming here to discuss. Caitlin, this actually sounds like a great dating trend. I don't know why people are bashing on Gen Z. What better to bond with someone than the things that you hate?
I could not agree more. There have been so many dumb dating terms that have floated around the internet over the last, I guess, 5+ years, really. From breadcrumbing to ghosting to all the ones that have now become kind of like ubiquitous. I think that this is the one that I most am locked into, because the whole psychology behind grim keeping is that it is actually an intimate bonding experience to dislike the same things, whether that's slow walkers as one example, or people who like a certain TV show that you hate, hating the same TV show, hating the same band. All of this stuff is just good fodder for the initial stages of dating. It leads to lots of inside jokes, and nothing kind of bonds you to somebody. Like if you have a friend and you don't like the same person, I just intimately feel like you're just like that much further ahead into your relationship.
Yeah, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Also, if you bond based on the things that you dislike, there's a good chance that you'll have things that you do like in common. But the focusing on the negative, I think, is a really positive thing that we these days don't really, we don't make room for. We say it's too negative. My previous relationship, my ex-wife, we really bonded on the things we hated together. Did it create some toxicity between us? Probably. But yeah, I don't think this is that bad. I think there's a private culture between you and your partner where you're allowed to say mean things about people and things privately. And it's a good way to bond. I'm all for it. I feel like this is a hot take, though.
The healthiest couples, I swear, will get into a car together, an Uber, whatever, after a dinner with friends or a party, and the door closes, and you immediately launch into recapping everything that was going on with every single person, what's going on in their lives. And if I can't do that, if I can't have that after group hang download with my person, you're not the person for me. I don't want to get in an Uber with somebody who just says across the board, everyone's so great. Don't you think that everything about that thing we just did was so great? Like, of course, some people you're going to love and be like, oh, I always love talking to them. Food was amazing. Music was awesome. But I can't be around somebody who likes everything all the time. It's unrealistic.
Are you and your husband haters together? You guys have a culture of saying mean things about everybody you know?
We hate all the same stuff. We tend to dislike all of the same people. And I think It just means that we don't end up getting stuck doing stuff we don't like with people we don't like very often. Like, we have a lot of friends, and the friends that we do spend time with, we adore. And the people that we don't really see anymore, fill in the blanks.
I'm a Jew. I don't think we do wedding vows quite like this, but isn't like in people of Christian background, whatever ancestry, whatever you call waspy people, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
In the wedding vows, isn't it for better or worse? And if it's for worse, doesn't that imply saying mean things about people?
Yeah. And also just like not being into the same stuff is key. I once dated somebody who was, and I'm fine with someone liking sports. Like, I'm not a huge sports fanatic, but I like Toronto sports teams. I'm a bandwagon person. But he was so into sports that he never listened to music in the car. He only listened to sports radio. And we were... Yeah, get away. Like, this was my first red flag, but we were on a long drive together, and we were I was being forced to listen to some sort of sports radio show, and he called in.
Babe, quiet. I'm calling the radio station. Babe, be quiet.
And I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who has a background in radio. And this was, I've never been so horrified to watch this happen in my life. I think we might have broken up that weekend.
What do you even say on a sports radio call-in show? Wow, I hate this team. I love this player. Like, there's nothing interesting. It's always, oh, the team worked really hard or he batted really well. Like, it's the same 5 narratives over and over. Fine if you like sports, but don't try to tell me it's highbrow. These sports broadcasts, I should keep my mouth shut, but sports broadcasting, it's like, oh, the team played really hard or they missed all, their defense was bad. Like, there's nothing deep. There's no, like, deep philosophical debates in sports. Maybe there is, actually. Maybe when the players do things that isn't on the court or field. Maybe then. But what they do during the game, it's not that intelligent.
And usually it's like people will be getting together to complain about, a team that they don't like, or you'll hear someone bash the team that you like on the radio, and then you call in to say that person was an idiot, or you're arguing about something that the coach did, or a trade was made. Like, I appreciate that there's news around sports. Just for me personally, I can't stand it. I don't think it's that interesting, and I certainly don't want to have to listen to it in a car ride for 2 hours. So for me, somebody who likes the same stuff as me is key, because I don't want to be held captive on a road trip to like music I don't like or things I don't want to listen to.
Does this grim keeping work in like platonic broadcaster friends? Because I feel like it's not just a dating trend. It's with friends too. You and I are doing it right now.
I know.
And I feel like with my friends that I'm close with, we sometimes bond over the things we hate. I like this dating trend. I know it makes me seem like a negative Nancy, but I think the Gen Zs are onto something.
Okay, but it's not negative because you're like, I like it. Is it not
True.
sort of like this circular thing that's happening?
I do think there's a room for being a sincere, wholesome, positive person. I do. Like, I don't think you should just bond over being mean, but I think there's room for both.
Like, I don't understand the majority of network television anymore, for example. Like, if somebody really, really wants to watch, the 59th season of Grey's Anatomy, power to you. But I don't like it. And so I don't want to watch it. But that doesn't mean I don't want to help old people. That doesn't mean I don't want to, like, be engaged with charity. Or it doesn't mean I don't love babies. Like, I don't think that hating stuff makes you a bad person. I think it kind of usually, in my experience, just makes you a little bit funny. And that is something that I value. So I want someone who can like make fun of the same stuff as me. It is a dark sense of humor that I have. So if you don't have that dark sense of humor, like, we're not going to work, and that's fine. If you are listening to me talk right now and you're like, God, this person's annoying, like, we shouldn't date.
Well, you are married with a child. I don't know
Super married.
What you're, I was going to make some weird open marriage comment, but I decided that's inappropriate. But it is our next topic.
It is.
There's the transition. Let's not make this about you. Lily Allen on her new album.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Because I think people hear about open relationships, non-monogamy, polyamory, and they just assume it's a free-for-all. But you can actually cheat in an open marriage. I know like people who've never done this or people who don't know a lot about it, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But there's basically rules set up where you can date other people, see other people, whatever. But those rules are just like a monogamous relationship. You can break trust and cheat. And that's why this conversation's so interesting. Do you want to set up this album for me and how it all plays into what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I think this is her first album in 6 years, and Lily Allen's always been a very, very honest, forthcoming songwriter, and she does write her own music, so a lot of her stuff is about her life and about her experiences. So she was married to David Harbour, who is the police chief on Stranger Things, and that's sort of the role everyone would know him best for. So she was married to him for 4 years, and being kind of like a celebrity couple, people paid a lot of attention to them. They had like an Architectural Digest house tour, like they were kind of like a couple. And so people were a little invested in their narrative and wondering what happened. Turns out what happened was that they had some form of an open marriage, which he broke the rules of, and she details it. And I am underlining and putting details in bold here. She really details what happened in this marriage, from the type of sex he was into, to like phone calls they had, to specific fights, to the name of one of his mistresses. I mean, she airs this all out. If you were going to cheat on someone, please, if you're a famous person, don't let it be someone who writes their own music, because they are just going to drag you to hell, which is what she's done.
That's what I've always said. I've never cheated on Taylor Swift, because if I did, it would end up in a song. I've also never dated her, spoken to her, or whatever. But I'm just saying, when we come back, we'll talk more details of this album and have a question about ethical non-monogamy, what all this says about that. I'm here with Caitlin Green, media personality. Check her out on the Jan Arden podcast that she co-hosts. Caitlin, he said slowly, waiting for the music. There it is.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
The last show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
We are discussing Lily Allen's new album where she rails on her ex-husband David Harbour, who cheated on her in the context of an open marriage, which I think is an interesting conversation. Caitlin, welcome back to the show. Also, you co-host the Jan Arden podcast and you're a media personality. Boom, there's your introduction. Welcome to the show. I'm great at my job.
And I'm a monogamist, for the record. So
I am now. I was in an open relationship where there was cheating. So for me, this kind of hits home.
Okay. So wait, your past marriage?
I met Miranda when we were married and things were open, and then things got rocky in my marriage and we closed it off. And I kind of kept seeing Miranda and my ex-wife kind of kept seeing her boyfriend, and things blew up like a nuclear bomb. It worked while it worked, and then it didn't, and boom, now you know something new about me, except I've been monogamous with Miranda for many, many years. So I'm a boring person now.
You buried the lead here. Why was I introing Lily Allen? And why was I discussing her album and David Harbour? We should have just gone into this right away. But anyways.
I feel like because my ex involved and Miranda's involved, it's a little too personal, but I will answer questions if something makes, it's for me, my whole life's an open book on my show, but for some of the characters in my life, you got to respect their privacy. Okay. But I think the details I've divulged, just the facts of it is kind of,
So I won't ask you to give a police description of anyone naked. Got it.
I lack a visual memory. I have aphantasia. It's a cognitive disorder. I couldn't describe anyone naked.
How did we turn into, okay, back to the other one.
Too much. Yeah, but it's not the David Cooper show. Now, or maybe it is, but that's, I could just monologue and not have you on. Yeah, no, I just think a lot of people think open relationships, polyamory, monogamish, it just means it's a free-for-all, and that's not how it works in practice. Like there can be rules, there can be broken trust, even in the paradigm of seeing other people outside of your primary relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who have been in open relationships, and not one of them ended well. I'll say that. And what I do see as a trend that happens adjacent to ethical non-monogamy, ENM, the acronym you might have seen on many dating sites, is nobody has any sympathy for them when it goes down in flames. That's the one part where I'm like, and I'm seeing that with the Lily Allen story, right? So everyone is agreeing that like David Harbour, if her accounts are 100% accurate, is a real POS. Like this guy sucks. And he sucks for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is because he broke the rules of their open marriage. He just sounds kind of to her. So I will say that everyone though is like, what did you think was going to happen when you opened up your marriage? What did you think was going to happen? Did you think that like this guy had a handle on his appetites? He clearly didn't. And I think that is sort of a sad piece of it because, as you pointed out, there are still rules in an open marriage, and the rules that he broke seem pretty egregious. And I know friends who've had their partners break rules and they were also fairly egregious, and it didn't make me any less sympathetic towards them, but the internet, not sympathetic.
I get that, but I think there's a few things at play here. You're saying every relationship you've seen in your friends hasn't ended well. A lot of people keep this stuff private. I know friends who are non-monogamous for many years and they have wonderful relationships.
Oh, but it's a secret. Gotcha.
It's a secret, or it's none of your business, or like you're in a friend group where it's not that common, and so the ones that do it are kind of scandalous and they get a lot of the media attention within your friend group. If you're in a friend group with a lot of people who are open, things are a little different. I used to live in San Francisco, and I find that people who are private about it, they end up talking about it after it explodes. And so you kind of get this bias. You know, you might have something similar with like gay relationships 50 years ago where they're not that public, but then they explode and you're like, well, gay relationships don't work. I think it's a little unfair. I think it's a little like, you know, I think it's coming from a place where people who are monogamous get defensive. They think, oh, if my friends are doing that, then maybe my wife will want to do that. And that's not cool. And so I'm against it but it's like, let people live their lives. And look, I've known way more monogamous relationships that have exploded badly than non-monogamous ones.
It's true. They just don't get the like cool fanfare.
And you don't get like, well, that relationship was going to fail. You shouldn't have been in a relationship. You don't say that to. So I feel like they get this negative lens, and I think it's unfair. Having said that, I do think a lot of them blow up spectacularly.
Well, because I think that to the people who are practicing monogamy, they just feel so uncomfortable with the idea at the outset that when it doesn't go well, it like makes sense to you that it doesn't go well because you're like, I already figured this wouldn't go well. But like you said, there's a lot of people where it is probably going well quite privately. And you're right. The people that at least in my data set, I tended to hear about it more as it was not going well or as people in this relationship were developing feelings for their third. And so I wound up hearing about it like, oh, you know, I'm in this open situation and here's my third. And I'm all of a sudden enjoying spending time with my third more than I am with my, you know, technical initial partner. And so there was like a lot of that stuff that happened. So I don't know what's going on with the Lily Allen and David Harbour situation now. I do know that she dressed up as one of his mistresses for Halloween this year. which is a
petty.
level.
I love it. Yeah.
A level of petty that I just appreciate in a public figure because it's hard to do. But one of the women that she writes about in a couple of songs is named Madeline. And she was saying she wanted to know who this person was in particular. And it's like this phrase that comes up over and over again on one song, who's Madeline? Madeline is also a character from children's books. And so Lily Allen dressed up as Madeline, the character from children's books this year for Halloween.
Their rules, I think Madeline's involved in this song, be discreet and don't be blatant. There had to be payment. It had to be with strangers. Payment? What does this, does this mean that like he's paying for sex and that's one of the rules?
Probably. I read that same line and I had assumed that it was sex workers, but I'm not sure. Question mark?
Weird.
I know.
Well, that's a weird one. That's out there. I mean, it's whatever. If it worked for them, it worked for them, but it didn't.
Nope.
Yeah, that's
also like she talks about discovering sort of like a grocery bag of his sexual accessories at an apartment that he kept that they did not share, and it's specific. It's very specific.
Yeah. I feel like he asked for like the reasonable open relationship. Oh, I'll see someone on the side. It won't be a big deal. And she agreed. And then what she got is like basically the sex addict.
Well, and it also starts to sound like, yes, it does sound like obviously there is some sex addictive type of, behavior happening by her estimation of things. Maybe he would argue with that. But she also talks about how he wasn't terribly supportive of her career and that shortly after they got married, their sex life began to fall off once they were, married and sort of monogamous / non-monogamous. And then when she had to go to do a part in a West End show in London, he was not supportive of her. And she actually famously posted a note that he gave to her on her opening night. It was flowers, and the card inside was such a hater message. It was like basically saying, I miss you. Now you're going to go off to London and they're going to get all of you and I'll have none and I'll be here and I'll be miserable. And this was on her like opening night.
Oh, what a nice guy. Yeah. And there's also reports of him on the set of Stranger Things, bullying and harassing a co-star.
The co-star was also a child.
Yeah, that's, I think, important to notice. It's all alleged, but David Harbour, maybe not based on these reports, a guy we'd want to hang out with. Caitlin.
No, I don't think so. And I was waiting to see sort of what the PR response would be from his team, and they have opted at this point for silence, which is definitely a good option for a lot of celebrities. Like, you don't necessarily want to add fuel to the fire with your own statements, but I do wonder at what point he wants to come out and maybe say like, not all of this is entirely true. That hasn't happened yet, but we'll see. I don't think because Stranger Things, I think they're coming up for their new final season. I don't imagine he's going to be doing the red carpets.
No.
I don't see him being the face of this final season at all when they're doing press runs.
I'm always curious about what these PR crisis companies do. I have a friend who works at one, but he will not talk to me about it because I think that's part of the deal. It's all like secret.
Yeah.
But let's hope that Stranger Things retains someone good to help, I don't know, with Fallout, or maybe they deserve it for hiring this guy. Who knows?
Yeah, Netflix probably can afford someone good, so maybe they'll spend that money.
Caitlin Green, find her on the Jan Arden podcast that she co-hosts. Caitlin, I appreciate you coming on the show as always.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Coming up, remember how online dating used to be about picking that perfect photo, the smile, the lighting, maybe even your dog. But now, signaling your political affiliations might do the flirting for you. A new study shows our political views can make us more or less attractive to potential mates. After the break, we'll teach you about the modern dating profile, love looks, and your left or right leanings.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Turning headline news into punchline gold. 5 nights a week. The last show with David Cooper.
Swipe left, swipe right, but step aside selfies. Your political stance might be the thing that stands out to people on dating apps. A new study finds your political views might be a real deal breaker or deal maker when you're dating online. I'm here with George Melios, who worked on the study. He's a behavioral science researcher at the London School of Economics. George, welcome to the show.
Hi, dude. Nice to see you. Thank you for hosting me.
The name of your paper is even funny. It's titled Sleeping with the Enemy, Partisanship, Intolerance, and Online Dating. What exactly were you trying to find out with this study, and how did you go about looking for it?
So I think both the topic and the name are quite funny stories, independent stories, but quite funny as well. So we started this work about 2 years ago with Paul and Yara, Paul Dole and Yara Sleiman, but the co-authors of the study. And the idea came from basically a pub conversation that was about people putting on their Tinder profiles, no Tories, no Labour, and these type of messages. So we're trying to basically see whether that's just people being stupid or just trying to be provocative to start up a conversation, or it's reflecting actual behavior. And we started working with a couple of platforms that we can't really name for NDA reasons, but we started looking at, is this what people actually believe? Like, do platforms match politically people? And this is where the title came from, because we attended an online sort of convention of dating platforms a couple of years ago. And they were calling non-matching profiles enemies. So it's like, you shouldn't match these type of people with these type of people because they will be enemies and they will never swipe right or something like that.
So the platforms themselves, in some cases, were like preventing people on the left from matching with people on the right to give them better matches.
This was a discussion of people working on them. So I don't know if it's an official strategy of the platforms or not. I don't want to be sued about anything. But the discussion was about whether we should be designing algorithms that basically match people with different interests.
So political attractiveness, is it a real thing? Can you measure it? Were people swiping based on it?
So what we did in the study is actually a bit interesting and funny thing at the same time. So we created hundreds of fake profiles. So we took pictures that were basically AI before AI that are generically beautiful or generically less beautiful. We made a lot of people rate them on how pretty they are so that we can get a sort of basic level of attractiveness. And then we tried to basically create a virtual checklist. You know, we always say that men and women have different types of checklists of characteristics that they basically measured. And we created this checklist based on the literature. So we created prettiness, political leaning, whether you vote for Labour or for Tories, how tolerant, how open you are to discuss with other people, because this is a thing that came up a lot when we were checking profiles on other platforms. And then things that are sort of deal breakers for some people when you're dating, and there is literature about it, which is height. For women particularly, it's quite important. And dietary needs, because it sort of gives a bit of wokeness flavor into it. And we created an experiment that basically tries to estimate trade-offs between these things, like how hot do I need to be to date me, for example, for you to date me if I'm also voting for the opposite party, or like how tolerant do I need to be if I vote for the opposite party, or like if I'm extreme vegan and you don't like vegans, what do I need to trade for that?
And what did you end up finding?
So we ran that for about 3,000 people in the UK last year, and we ended up finding two very interesting things. The first thing is that what you vote matters as much as how pretty you are. So there is basically like a 20 percentage points difference on like, I'm willing to trade 2 points of beauty out of a 10-point scale to date someone that votes the same thing as me. And I'm willing to do the same thing with them being open. So, okay, you can vote for something else, but as long as we can discuss, I'm willing to sort of go past it.
Interesting. So attractiveness outweighs your political leanings, or at least helps. But if you have an openness, that's scored high. I guess my next question is, why do you think, based on these findings, politics have become so intertwined with romance? Is it a sign of the times that people are really divided right now? Or do you think this has always been the case and you're just highlighting it?
So I think there is a couple of things. I think, and this is the interesting part of us doing it in the UK and not in the US, which is already a sort of extremely polarized situation right now. First of all, it's not universal for everyone. So I don't think it's the same mechanism that drives women dating out partisans and men dating out partisans. We know that behaviorally. So we know that men, for example, in this platform, they're like swipe, instead of just looking at the profile. While women are sort of mostly, at least empirically, looking for non-casual relationships through these platforms. They're like, yes, I will go on a date with you, but on the background, I'm thinking that, okay, can I be with this person? So in that sort of argument, then other things rather than attractiveness start to play a role in this discussion. And the other thing is that from this research and other work that I'm doing on sort of behavioral effects of polarization, we do observe that polarization is starting to sort of affect everyday life behaviors that are not political. For example, what you donate to, who you date, what type of roommates you are getting. There's a bunch of research that sort of gets into that thing that, okay, we're getting polarized in every way now.
Do you think it's that people find those politically aligned with them more sexy, or is it more about like core beliefs and lifestyle and values and things like that?
One can only speculate. I don't have a very clear answer to why that would happen. I think one of it is the sort of more modern way of life that nobody really has time. So I'm not willing to invest a time for a date with you if I know that we are disagreeing on core concepts. Maybe it's fun, maybe you're hot, maybe we can have sex, but that's not gonna do anything for my life, so let's skip. And the second thing that's more empirically based and less of a speculation is that politics now sort of work as a signal for a bunch of things. So if I know that you're conservative, for example, I know that you might not like abortion, that you might be sort of racist. There is a connotation of how people see the sort of default left person and the default right person and what this comes about.
Interesting. Were there any examples of people exaggerating or faking their political identities on dating apps to get more matches, even though they're not the political thing they claim to be?
That's a fantastic question. I don't know, but given what we know from social science, that people generally lie on surveys to sort of feel socially desirable, I'm pretty sure that people do that. And maybe there is something that we sort of give from this paper, like just don't mention your politics and try to be open to everyone. You'll get more likes. That sort of seems to be there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to be hotter to a certain group, they can change their political affiliation on an app just to get more matches. We talked about it at the beginning of the interview, app designers only matching those with similar political alignments. You said you don't know if that's happening now, but based on your paper, do you think that's a good recommendation to apps, or would that further polarize us, or both?
I think both. I think they might make more money, like people will stick more with the platforms unless they actually find, I don't know, permanent partner. They don't need this platform anymore. And it will also polarize it. I think that if we're just being exposed to a specific group, we tend to sort of exaggerate on how polarized we are.
Any other recommendations or follow-ups you would have from this study?
We're trying to do something now on whether you would be willing to have a beer with someone that sort of votes a different way. But I'll need to catch you up on that. It's coming soon, but it's not ready yet.
That beer thing's funny. A long time ago, I dated this Republican woman, and I asked her why she liked George Bush, and she said he just really liked him because she felt like he was a president that she could sit down and have a beer with. So maybe this thing is very important, this beer concept.
In the UK, I think it's actually, it says a lot about what you think of the other person if you're not willing to have a beer with them.
Well, George Melios is a behavioral science researcher at the London School of Economics. George, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Up next, The Modern Office, a boring dystopia. But with a few hot takes, you can get ahead. There is a right way to ask for a raise, and there is a reason the culture in your office feels like high school. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The Last Show with David Cooper, where we apply quantum mechanical psychoanalytical astrotherapy to your problems.
She's notorious for leaking HR secrets. She might tell you to shut the something up in a way that won't get you fired. And she says that you, in the workplace, ought to operate with the confidence of a mediocre man. She hosts Clock In with Emily. It's a podcast. Her name is Emily Durham. She goes by Emily the Recruiter. And we're here to talk, HR issues and how to get ahead at work. Emily, I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I anticipate this is going to be the segment that your boss hopes you aren't listening to. So if you have stumbled upon this, I think we're going to have a good time.
Are there secrets that people can learn from you, but your hot takes to get ahead at the workplace, things that people don't say, but they ought to do?
100%. How much time do we have? I think the biggest thing is people don't realize that visibility matters so much more than the quality of your work. You can spend your whole life trying to be the smartest, most intelligent person in every single room, but then look to your right and realize that person with the big, loud personality is often the one getting promoted. So putting effort into networking intentionally, asking for favors, and being what I like to call the office celebrity. So remembering the details about people's personal lives. Not in a creepy way, but in a way where you follow up, you small talk, you make people feel seen. I guarantee 6 months of that is getting you further ahead than that MBA you're thinking of going back to school to get.
I want to talk about this visibility thing because being sociable in the workplace is so important. I've been that employee at a tech company hoping for the promotion, but I've also been that manager in the room when people are deciding who gets promoted. And it's, I guess occasionally it's like, oh, they aced this one project, but they're this nimble, mousy person. But the people who get talked about are the big personalities. I feel like there's this Venn diagram of competence, but then likability and visibility. And if you're right there in the middle, you don't need to be the best employee. You just got to be adequate. And if everyone likes you, you're going to get talked about when it comes time for promotion. Is that what you're saying?
100%. So the baseline is you have to be good at your job, right? If you're not good at your job, you being likable is not really going to matter because no one likes working with someone who's bad at what they do. But the reality is you don't need to boil the ocean. You don't need to be the person who does the most, who's always got your hands in 1,000 pots. Be a little bit more strategic. Be really good at your job, and the extra stuff that you take on, make sure that's the stuff the executives see. Maybe that's the employee resource group that you're working with. It's all of these things that are highly visible that you then get to dangle in front of your boss because it makes your boss look good and your boss look engaged. And if you're hearing this thinking, well, I'm an introvert, I don't want to be the loudest in the room, it's not about being the loudest, it's about being seen. So be strategic with where you put your time. That's what gets you ahead.
Those extra little things you do that you volunteer for at work that aren't that much effort but are super high visibility, go for those. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's the one. I call it the 10% rule. You should spend 10% of every work week working on stuff that's not your job, but damn, does it look good on your profile. And I love volunteering internally, again, in those employee resource groups. They're great for you to be connected to mentors, but it's huge on visibility.
I made a big push in my old tech job to be on hiring panels, to be the person who decides to hire people. It was kind of boring. It was kind of extra work. You had to do these interviews. But then when you're on the panel discussing with all these senior people who they should hire and they're listening to your opinion, it wasn't a huge amount of effort, but I feel like it was something that got me promoted early on.
It's just one more unconventional way for you to connect with someone maybe who wouldn't know how you work otherwise. But now they're like, you know what? David's got an interesting perspective. He's kind of got a point on that. And suddenly you're someone they want to work with again. You're not just a number kind of on a piece of paper.
Let's have some fun here. I feel like that's a good one. Be highly visible. But I recently saw a video of yours where you said that The Office is 99% like high school. We're talking cliques, gossip, mean girl situation, exclusion, bullying. It's like the cafeteria lunchroom all over again. Do you believe that's the case in most offices?
I don't know if it's for most, but for many. I think the reality is anytime you spend 40 hours or more a week with the same group of people, there's a false sense of comfortability and security. People are a bit more comfortable to say things that are a bit out of pocket, to offer more critique, to question your opinions, question why you were 5 minutes late to that meeting. There just tends to be this uncomfortable sense of community that hasn't been earned, which can often turn up in things like office mean girls trying to assert dominance. And it's really all coming down to one issue. We're all struggling to be seen at work, which is why if you're one of the smart ones who finds ways to be visible that doesn't put you in competition with others, your life's going to get a whole lot easier. But yeah, this stuff often feels like high school.
Office gossip, like I hear it happen. I've been a part of it in my old career. It's like, it can get like really ugly and really unnecessary, but I feel like you maybe can use it to your advantage.
You can. But only if we completely don't do it and do what I'm about to say instead. So when it comes to office gossip, if someone's coming to you with the juice and the squeeze about someone, you're not engaging. I don't care if that's your work bestie. I have worked in HR. I have seen what that does to your career. You don't want that getting out. Someone comes to you with a tidbit of information. You play dumb. Oh, I didn't know that. Or, oh, interesting. I don't really notice those things. You pretend you don't pay attention. You diffuse it. If you want to gossip and build that sense of connection with people without it leaning negative and putting you in a position of risk, focus on positive gossip. Did you see Susan and her boyfriend got a dog? It's so cute, this little cockapoo. Bring up things that are positive, that still scratch the itch of community, but don't make you look like a jerk.
Interesting. So engage only positively, do not engage when it's negative, but it can be so fun, negative gossip. And it can bond you with your coworkers.
It can. I would ask you if the only way you can bond with people is over negativity. Is that a bond worth having, especially when it puts you at risk?
And is that the employee that companies want now?
Exactly. No. And you know what's more fun to me? Picking up my crisp check every other Friday and going to the bank without being scared of being fired. So if you like the gossip more than you like being paid, baby, I do not know what to tell you.
All right. Things you can do to get ahead at work. You mentioned, of course, volunteering for projects that are highly visible. What about being the first to stab at something? What does that mean?
Okay, so this is something I often joke about online where I say you should be the first to stab. It is like the tiniest little hack to help you get recognized at work. But when you're in a meeting and a topic comes up, maybe a project you have to do, an action item that comes up, you'll notice there's usually a little bit of silence. And
like when they say anybody volunteer for this thing and then everyone looks at each other, oh God, I hope someone else does it.
The trick is before they even have to say, does anyone want to volunteer? Say, oh, I can take a stab at that. And then if it's, not in your wheelhouse, someone's going to hop in and offer to take it off your plate. And if not, sure, you've taken on a little bit of extra work, but it puts you in a position of proactivity, helps you build that credibility. And once again, it's visibility. Everyone in that meeting now knows you're on top of your A game.
But what if you're lazy? Come on. I mean, part of the reason I'm not in tech anymore is I knew there'd be a day when my boss came in and said, David, you're too lazy. We're letting you go. Like, what if the idea of doing extra stuff at work is just so awful for you? What do you tell when people say that?
Yeah, I mean, are you lazy or are you looking for ways to be more efficient? I think in today's world where we're, you know what I mean?
No, I love it. That's
HR
a great, you just reframed it perfectly.
There it is. Like, you are not lazy. You just know there's better ways you could use your time. Why not take the stuff you don't like off your desk and into AI platforms and tools if it's allowed in your workspace, which for many of us it is. Have your emails, all of that icky stuff automated for you, and then focus on the high visibility work. Like, that's where AI needs to be coming in. You're not lazy. You just are looking to streamline, okay?
What about I'm not lazy, I'm just not motivated? That was more of a high school problem, I think, for me.
You know what? You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Getting the energy to be nice to your coworkers when you can't stand them. Where does that come from?
A higher power that I have little to no control over. The idea isn't that you are nice to these people because you want to be their friends. Stop trying to be kind to people in an effort to be friends and reposition your work connections as allies. And when you start looking at it through a more strategic lens, you'll realize you maybe have one or two work friends. The rest are all just allies, people you need in your corner. And the second you remove that emotion, that expectation they're going to meet you with that same kindness tends to drop away. But we don't need to fake nice. Be perfectly cordial, be perfectly easy to work with. That's your ally, not your friend.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction because I think a lot of people think their work friends are their friends. They go to another company, they never hear from them again. The kind of people that you'll stay in touch with, those are your only friends, the rest allies. Emily, I'm getting such a kick out of talking to you. You can find Emily on Clock In with Emily, a podcast. She also goes by Emily the Recruiter. Her name is Emily Durham. How many times can I say the word Emily? That I don't know. But when we come back, the right way to ask for a raise. Emily, I'm looking forward to that chat with you in a moment. I said your name too many times. This was a terrible...
I love it.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. All right, we'll be back with more in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
BJ's Wholesale Club makes holiday hosting so easy, we called in Thanksgiving's original host to talk about it.
Pilgrim here. We could have used BJ's back in the day. Imagine stepping off a boat, then foraging for your first Thanksgiving. It's a whole new world now. BJ's brings Thanksgiving right to your door with free same-day delivery on your first order of $100 or more. We're talking turkey, squash, pies, all at prices so good they'll knock the buckle right off your hat.
For terms, visit bjs.com/Thanksgiving and get the same great savings online as in club.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The market sucks right now. The idea of asking your boss or your company for a raise might be anxiety-inducing, but there is a right way to do it, and that's what we'll discuss here with Emily Durham, who goes by Emily the Recruiter. Check out her podcast, Clock In with Emily. Emily, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, I've talked to friends who are still at big companies, and the idea of asking for a raise is so scary to them when they're worried they could be laid off at any minute. But the fact is, people are still getting raises out there, aren't they?
They are. So the first thing you need to realize is the cost of living continues to rise. That continues to go up. So if your salary hasn't been increased every year or at least every year and a half, chances are you're underpaid, regardless of what the hiring market looks like. The truth of the situation is, the market is bad. We have less bargaining room. It's not as believable to say, well, if you don't give me this number, I have 4 other job offers in my back pocket. That's not the world we live in. It also doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be compensated for the work that you do. It doesn't mean we aren't asking for a raise. It just means our tact needs to be a little bit more strategic with what we're actually doing to get that raise.
So what should we be doing? I have ideas about this because I used to manage employees. I used to try to get raises for myself. I'm certain your ideas are better, but let's hear what yours
We'll
are.
see. So first things first, if you are not doing well at your job and you don't have feedback from your boss that you are, if not exceeding your expectations on performance, it's not a good time to ask for a raise. Asking for a raise is not going to be the reason you get laid off or fired, but if you're not doing well and you ask for a raise, it's showing you're out of touch with reality, my friend. So performance needs to be on track. Once you are sure that your performance is where it needs to be, book an in-person meeting or phone meeting with your boss for about 15 minutes. In the conversation, I don't want you saying the cost of living has gone up, life is expensive. They see the quality of your work because you work with them every day, because you communicate what value you add in your job regularly. Instead, in this conversation, you say, I've really enjoyed working with this team. I love how much my role has expanded. I've really enjoyed working with Susie and Bob. I wanted to know if there's an opportunity for us to talk about my salary or compensation as we approach year end. Now, the trick is, ideally, you want to do this a few months before your company does their annual performance review. But if not, and it's off cycle, that's okay. You just ditch the last part of the sentence. And the biggest tip of all, stop talking. The most powerful negotiation tool in the world is silence. Make your ask sit there quietly. If your boss is going to be able to get you the raise, they will tell you. If they need time, they will tell you. If it's a no, they will tell you. But you begging isn't helping your case. It's about being an effective communicator.
Here's my take, and I love what you just said. The goal, let's say it's getting me $5,000 more a year. There's two ways to go about the same goal. Well, there's probably many ways, but two that I see that are common. Me versus you, where me versus my manager, you need to get me this raise, or if you don't, you're in trouble, like a very adversarial approach. And then the other negotiating tactic is me and you together as a team getting towards a goal. So you got to figure out some frame where your manager wants to work with you. Say things like, hey, like, let's get a plan going where we can like work on this together and you give me feedback over these next 3 months or whatever, and we can work towards this common goal. Oh, by the way, the common goal is getting me a raise. If there's a way you can figure it out so that it seems like you're working on this together versus me versus you, I think that's a good way to do it. What say you to that approach?
100%. And I think that's where the power of asking it as a question, not a demand, comes in, because your boss might respond and say, listen, you're doing well, but not well enough for me to ask for a raise in this market. Then you say, okay, how can we get there? Can we meet weekly? Can we work on X, Y, and Z together? If your boss says, well, I'm going to have to put together a pitch, offer to support on that. Asking it as a question makes it a collaborative effort and not a demand. In this market, demands are not the way to go. That would have worked 4 years ago, but sure as heck not today.
Well, let's talk about how one dramatic thing has changed today. How AI has completely slopified the cold online application process, from the point where candidates are just AI-ifying their cover letters, their resumes, and applying to so many jobs. And then companies are using AI to consume those resumes, instantly rejecting hundreds. Basically, the landscape of just finding a job, maybe on LinkedIn, clicking apply, uploading your PDF resume or whatever, that whole process is now like awful and has such low margins, has such low pass rates, has such low getting past even like to a phone screen, let alone to an actual interview. So what should I do in that landscape today?
Give yourself permission to have a quick cry because it sucks. But once we move past the emotion of this, it's really important to understand the broader context of why this is happening so we know what to do about it. AI is obviously a massive part of this. One thing I will say is companies aren't entirely adopting AI as part of their application screening just yet. And that's largely because there's been some pretty meaningful class action lawsuits that suggest, and obviously I believe will be true, that AI is highly discriminatory with how
Shocker.
they review. Yeah, surprising news. So I would say that is what I'm less concerned about. I think the bigger issue here is there are so many job applicants and not enough jobs available. So to your point, candidates are leveraging AI to mass apply, to update their resumes more often. Recruiters are using it to mass schedule, maybe in some cases to help them screen through resumes in a way that makes things really messy and impersonal. The real issue today isn't having the perfect resume optimized by AI, and it's not mastering the applicant tracking system. It's getting your resume opened. And in a world that has leaned so far on the AI side of things, the only way to get that is through personal connection, whether that is networking with the company and reaching out to flag your application after you have applied, asking for referrals, even going to sneaky little websites and buying a referral. I know that's unethical, but I don't care about ethics. I care about you getting paid.
I didn't even know about those.
Yeah.
If I worked for some big company, I could sell referrals?
It's super sketchy, but yeah, you totally can. Yeah.
Wild.
Listen, sketchy in the context of capitalism, baby, you got to eat. I'm not here to judge, but really focus your energy on what previously would have been mass applications and customizing each of your resumes to now high volume intentional networking and asking for your resume to be opened after you have applied.
Go on LinkedIn, figure out who the hiring manager probably is, reach out directly to make a personal connection. Don't just apply on a portal. Even if you don't know people, like you don't have an established career you can network with, you can find these people and meet them and not just apply cold through a portal. It's hard, but it's doable.
It's really hard. And you also have to manage your expectations. For every 20 messages you send, you'll be lucky to receive one response. I'm not saying these odds are good. I'm not pretending that this is an easy process. It's total BS. I hate that this is the state of the market, but this is the state of the market. And I would rather you spend your time networking because it's going to yield better results.
I'd be remiss if we didn't at least talk about one of your hot HR takes.
Which one?
This one maybe mostly to women, but maybe also to men. Operate in the workplace with the confidence of a mediocre man. I love it, but please, you got to say more about it.
Yes. So for every man listening who's like, let me block this gal on Instagram, hold up. The reason that I say this is because when we look at statistics and data around who imposter syndrome, meaning that nagging feeling in the back of your head that you're not good enough, that often holds us back in our careers and our finances, disproportionately impacts women, particularly women of color. And data shows when we ask people how they feel at work, women tend to be more anxious about their workplace performance. And that's not to say that men don't experience this in other ways, but a lot of the data does point to that. So when I speak to a lot of my clients, especially my women clients, they're constantly in their heads wondering, oh my gosh, am I getting fired? Am I horrible at what I do? And I always tell them, people who should be worried about being fired based on their performance are never worried about being fired based on their performance. If you are already that self-reflective and that anxious and that in your head, you are already self-aware enough to know if something truly was going down with your career, if it was in your control. So showing up, communicating confidently, not apologizing for taking up space, which are things that historically women tend to do a little bit more than men, is kind of my nod with that. But I honestly think it's advice everyone can kind of lean into. Take up space, ask for what you want, be direct, and be thoughtful about the spaces you're doing that in, because we also know not every work environment makes that safe for everyone who's doing that.
Well, you can hear Emily Durham or Emily the Recruiter on the podcast Clock In with Emily. Emily, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, here's what we'll cover. In the service industry, there's something called the beauty bias. You know, like when there's a hot waiter and we think they'll get a better tip than someone who isn't hot. Researchers actually looked into this bias, and it's not always as great as you think. Sometimes it even backfires. We'll teach you when after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that makes you laugh, think, and occasionally uncomfortable. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I want to talk about something called the beauty bias, and that's how someone's looks influence how we treat people, especially in service jobs like being a waiter. Sometimes it helps, but sometimes this beauty bias doesn't actually help at all. It can backfire, and I'm here with someone who has done research in this area. I'm here with two people who have done research in this area. They are both marketing professors at Kennesaw State University. One is Goldar Chefor. Goldar, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us, David.
And I am also here with Ellis Chefor. Ellis, welcome to you.
Thank you very much, David.
So talk to me about this beauty bias. I think we all assume that if a waiter is attractive, they're going to get a bigger tip, and that's really the end of it. But what has some of the research on this said over the years?
So our research focused on service interactions. This research has been conducted in the area of education, in the area of law, in a variety of different settings. And in service specifically, you're looking at tips, but sometimes it's even how much a customer feels like they're satisfied with the service, how much they feel like the employee is competent, they're likable, and all of that translates to them evaluating them in terms of their performance, rating them as better performance than they would rate someone who is less attractive. Yeah, so it's a variety of outcomes that we looked at, not just tipping, even though tipping tipping would align with what we call gratitude. It's a huge factor, but it's a variety of different factors. Even loyalty, sometimes you feel more loyal to a company because their employees are more attractive than when they're not. And this is not like, we're not saying this is what the case is always. Like you said earlier, sometimes it's a positive effect, sometimes it is not even there, and sometimes it might backfire depending on the context and depending on a variety of other factors.
So I definitely want to agree with what Goldar is saying. Like I said, it's way more pervasive than just tipping culture, and that seems like a little bit more obvious. But like she says, it definitely impacts not just how employees are rated and how they perform, but the types of promotions that they receive, the paychecks that they get. And like she said before, while our focus was in the service industry, because that is our area of research, it goes way beyond the service industry. It impacts political outcomes. It impacts essentially how much we've seen in criminal justice research. there's a ton of research that shows the length of the jail term really depends on how physically attractive the person looks. So the impacts is very pervasive in our lives. So it's important that people pay maybe a little bit of attention to it.
Now, this beauty premium, I naively thought it always confers a positive benefit, but what are the cases where it's either neutral, like we don't care whether the people we're interfacing with are attractive, or even in some cases negative?
All right. So we did find that so for example, if you are in a service interaction where the experience was poor, so it was a poor experience and the employee was attractive, then you're less likely to rate them favorable. Rather, you're going to rate them less favorable than an unattractive one if the experience was negative. So that's one of the
Interesting.
situations in which it backfires, which is it's kind of interesting because you might feel like if you were likely to appreciate someone because they're beautiful, then you would forgive them also because they're beautiful. But then we're saying that is not really the case. You're less likely to forgive an attractive person when you have a service failure with them than when they're unattractive.
So being really handsome or being really pretty, like we expect good service from them, we expect a good experience from them in their professional life, but if we don't get one, we are less forgiving on average?
We're less forgiving than if they were unattractive. That's what the research says. And this is not what we tested. It's important that we should be clear that it's not what we tested. It's what we saw in the articles that we looked at. Because what we did was a meta-analysis of studies that already existed and simply quantitatively summarize their results. So some of the studies did point to that.
One other interesting thing that I think came up in your analysis of other research, you'd think that the stereotype is that a beautiful woman is going to get the best outcomes with tips or this, that, and the other. But this beauty bias, it appears to be a bit weaker for women than it is for men. What do you think about that? And tell me more about that.
So, like Goldar was saying, that is something that we found extremely shocking because we expect the effect to be stronger. And there's a ton of research and articles published sometimes in the Harvard Business Review that actually encourages women to lean into how their physical appearance because there's a premium associated with that in business settings. But what we found was that while people tend to judge women sometimes as more positively, they also tend to punish women based on their appearance. So if I perceive that a woman was unattractive, it has a negative consequence on how I judge her performance. But the same does not apply to men. So people would have positive expectations and judgments of attractive men, but they do not punish unattractive men for poor performance. And so that's why we find a weaker effect for women because while they have a good positive effect, they also have a negative effect from it. And so the net effect is somewhat weaker than the only positive effect for attractive men.
The word beauty is kind of vague, and I'm sure these studies define it. There's body shape, there's the way your face looks. What are some of these things, what are some of these attributes that people prefer or treat better or that contribute to the beauty bias? What are they and how do they do it?
All right. So generally, we looked at body shape, like you said. We looked at facial attractiveness, and then there's just a general evaluation of how the person looks. And then there is your attire, which is one of, I think, the cases in which businesses can have implications. That's what you can easily affect because you can dress well. Sometimes you cannot change the shape of your face or how it looks, right? So there was facial attractiveness, general appreciation of how the person looks, their attire or their dressing, and then body shape. What we did find was that as compared to facial attractiveness, general attractiveness, and physical attire, body shape seemed to have a significant effect than a stronger effect than the other attributes.
What does this reveal about what customers, what kind of impressions they have of employees? Does it say anything that is different than what we might think?
So our expectation would be, and most people think that when we talk about beauty, is essentially facial symmetry. And we found that while the facial structures have an impact on how we perceive beauty in business environments and service environments, we tend to perceive people's body appearance as having a larger impact on how physically attractive they are than their facial appearance. So that was kind of counterintuitive. We thought that, like most of the research says, it would be facial appearance or facial symmetry as opposed to body appearance. But both of them do have an impact. Like Goldar said, it's just that body appearance tends to be more impactful.
A lot of these things, when we drill into them, they go against what we would stereotypically think, which is kind of interesting and often true of any kind of like social studies. Our stereotypes often don't match the reality. Can beauty bias be used to discriminate, like maybe in hiring or something like that? And if so, is there anything we can do about it?
yes, in the United States, discrimination is illegal, right? And I'm assuming in most other countries in the world as well. But so we have what we call in the United States a protected class. If someone is of a certain religion or of a certain like or race, you cannot discriminate on them because that is a protected class. But unattractiveness is not a protected class because I mean, how do you define that, right? So it's very difficult to define, and most of us kind of admit that it's subjective. And so, while it is one of the strongest bias there is, there's hardly any protection against it. But as business researchers, it's our job to try and advise businesses on how to go about having good practices that lead to good outcomes for the business. One of the things that we really liked is this idea that style is extremely important, and that body appearance, which is something that we can have some kind of control over general appearance, body appearance, style. Businesses can affect that in terms of their how they see or how they dress their employees and the expectations that they have of how employees who are customer facing appear. So that's extremely important. We like that. There's not so much that any of us can do about maybe how our face appears, but it's something that we can do as a business overall about how our employees appear in terms of their general appearance and their style appearance. So we believe that that can begin to temper this beauty bias in the service industry. And we also found that virtual interactions, the beauty bias is less impactful in virtual interactions. And also in Western cultures compared to Eastern cultures, they have more of a premium place on conformity and physical attractiveness. And so it is not as important in Western cultures in virtual interactions. And also in non-human interactions, talking about things like AI and robots, we do not evaluate them based on their physical appearance. So that can be one of those areas where it can be a way of evening out how people perform if we can use maybe chatbots and things like that, virtual interactions to temper that bias.
Goldar, Chefor, and Ellis Chefor, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you having us.
Goldar and Ellis are marketing professors at Kennesaw State University. After the break, there's been a lot of research in how parks, forests, green spaces can lift your mood. But a new paper suggests a short visit to nature can boost your happiness for an entire day. We'll tell you how that all works up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
We all know that going outside feels good, but there's new psychology research that suggests something a little bigger. A straightforward visit to nature can boost your happiness for an entire day. Parks, forests, lakes, they might be the cheapest mood-lifting therapy out there. So let's dig into why stepping outside might change what happens inside. Oh, that's pretty good. I don't know who wrote that. I'm here with Tobias Harvey, a psychology researcher at the University of Vienna who worked on this. Tobias, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I think we all know anecdotally that nature makes us feel good, sort of resets us. But why the interest? What sparked your interest in studying this link between nature and our actual happiness on a daily basis?
Well, I think it's a fair point. I think we all kind of feel and probably have experienced that trips to nature, they improve our mental well-being. But we wanted to look at it from a scientific perspective. So in going deeper, we were interested in finding out how much do these positive effects of nature extend beyond the moment. And we were interested in finding out who benefits most. And to that end, we were really interested in looking at people who suffer from depression or anxiety, which are known as common mental health disorders.
Those old friends. I have both of them, so maybe I should listen up. Okay, so what are some of these effects that going out there has? It's more than just in the moment. There's so-called spillover effects. Can you say more about that?
Yes, exactly. It's actually a quite interesting term. So when you visit nature, it's pretty much proven, and I think, again, a lot of people can tell from their own experience that your mood is definitely, it's got a boost from the nature, right? So you maybe feel happier, you feel less anxious, but spilling over means that these visits, like the effects, the emotions that arise during these visits, do they actually extend beyond the visit themselves?
I've actually spoken to somebody who tested out VR headsets of nature and had findings that no, it wasn't as good as going to a park. But even that can help a little bit. How long will these effects last? Suppose I go to the park for 30 minutes. I'm having a stressful day. The effects of anxiety and depression feel particularly heavy on that given day. How long will it last?
Well, of course, it depends on the individual and how grave the symptoms are. But you could say, like from our research, that it definitely spills over to the entire day, right? So that's a pretty good effect, given that you don't really have to spend that much time in nature.
And what sort of spaces can we go to? There's green spaces and then there's blue spaces. What are some of these places I can get this benefit from?
Okay, so we generally compartmentalize between green and blue spaces in this kind of research. And green spaces would be anything which is, let's say, a bit more plant heavy. All right, that could be a general description. So, for example, parks or gardens, or it could be something like a forest, like a wood, even. And blue spaces, on the other hand, they're more, let's say, aquatic environments. So, for example, if you go to a river, if you walk along the seaside, or it could be something as simple as going to a fountain.
And what are there different benefits that I might get from both? For example, I'm in downtown New York. There's lots of rivers. They're very clean. You should drink from them. I'm kidding, of course, but not so much green space down here. Is there different benefits I can get from visiting, or do they have different effects on people?
hmm So we could tell from our research, or definitely hints at it strongly, that there is a difference between the two, but generally speaking, they both have quite a good effect on your mental well-being, right? Um, but when looking at people who have a common mental health disorder, right, as I said, depression and or anxiety, they I want to stress seem, we can get into that later on, that they particularly benefit from blue spaces.
Interesting. Was there a link between blue spaces and anxiety? Was there different results? And if so, what's going on there? Why is like watery spaces versus foresty spaces? Why are they different?
That is indeed a great question. So, first off, let me say that we found that people who had a common mental health disorder actually reported greater anxiety when they visited a blue space, right? Which might sound a bit, well, counterintuitive at first, right? When I
Yeah.
said that blue spaces seem to offer a lot of, we call them restorative properties. But then again, when looking closer, it might reflect the reason why they actually visited blue spaces. So, a person who has a common mental health disorder is oftentimes subject to elevated anxiety, right? And when this elevated anxiety is there, and the person kind of tries to find a way to regulate those emotions, it could be that this person actively seeks out a blue space to calm themselves down.
Okay, so it's not that blue spaces are causing anxiety.
I wouldn't say so, right? In our study, it's kind of difficult to say like the direction of causality here. Um, but the thing is that blue spaces in other studies have shown to be the favorite place to go for people generally, and especially also for people with common mental health disorders. And I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that people, if they actually seek out blue spaces or actually vote them as their favorite nature space to go, then it's probably not causing the anxiety.
Interesting. Okay, I kind of misunderstood that and I found it striking, but that explanation really makes a lot more sense. What about people who live in dense urban environments? Like for me, nature is rats, pigeons, cockroaches. I'm in downtown Manhattan. What do we do? Like we just go to like a tiny little area with trees? Should we take the time to visit a really lush green or blue space? What do you recommend to folks who don't have immediate access to parks, forests, lakes, things like that?
Okay, also a great question. And probably even more pressing in this kind of era where a lot of people are moving into cities, right? A lot of urbanization going on. And we could say that it doesn't really have to be the great wilderness where you find the nature that kind of alleviates your depressive or anxious symptoms. It could also be something like going to a park. I know New York has a great Central Park, for instance.
True.
Right?
It's uptown, though, but that's besides the point. There's a few parks around here. I was actually just thinking of one that's not too far. It doesn't have to be like 100-kilometer wood with thick, lush rivers and trees. It can be a small public space, is what you're saying.
Definitely. I would say that the most important point is that you kind of have this feeling to be able to reconnect with nature, right? And if let's say a small square garden is enough for you, then there you go.
Is there anything you would want to say to city planners or public health officials when figuring out how to design public space based on your research?
Yes, absolutely. I would make the point actually that designing and integrating these nature spaces into cities is actually a very, very cost-effective preventive healthcare approach, right? So you have a lot of benefits accumulated into these spaces, which could reach a lot of people.
Got it. Well, thanks so much for sharing your research. I've really enjoyed the conversation, Tobias. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me. My pleasure.
Tobias Harvey is a psychology researcher at the University of Vienna. That's our show. Thanks for listening to it. We'll be back tomorrow night. Don't forget, The Last Show has a podcast. I know I tell you every night, but in case you didn't know, you can catch those parts of this show you missed or replay stuff you loved. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That is lastshow.pizza, not .com, never.com. There you can find out more details of our podcast, including how to subscribe. I'm David Cooper. This was not the first show, and, well, I already thanked you for tuning in, but thanks for tuning in.